Hey, hello everybody. It is Dr. Steve back with another episode of Core Wellness TV, and today I think I'm going to be able to hit all three pillars: mindset, movement, and nutrition strategies to bring you into peace physiology, which is the physiology of healing, which is the physiology of relaxation, which is what you are, right? Is what you are is complete relaxation, perfect healing, perfect everything, and we make up all these crazy things in our brain and get in all these crazy stress patterns, and that's what causes our eventual demise and unhealthy lifestyles, right? So the first thing, the mindset piece, these are taken from just case studies and people that I've talked to. Today was a call-in day for speed coaching for my course students, and so that's what's on top of my mind. One of the gentlemen I was talking with, we were talking about quality of life and spiritual connection, and where if there was any grounding practices that he did on a regular basis. And he said the biggest challenge for him was didn't have his purpose. He hasn't figured out his purpose, hasn't figured out his calling, and so that kind of keeps you down if you don't have that driving force. There's something that you want to, that you know is kind of inside you that needs to come out, right? So what I suggested and what was on my mind about that is that why is it so hard and sometimes to find that? And I believe a lot of times is because we have all these blockages up that are not allowing us to even see it. It's kind of like a cloud, this haze that we're putting up so it can't actually come to us or come through us, because we are either in pain or we are eating a diet that's keeping our nervous system buzzing with stress, like sugar or addictions or it's alcohol or chronic overuse of caffeine or sugar or wheat or gluten or dairy, whatever it is that's keeping a cloud in front of us. Because if there's something that you can't stop doing, whether it doesn't have to be a nutritional substance, it can be organization for the OCD, right? Or it can be control, or you can even be addicted to sadness, right? Basically, these are molecules of emotion, and they're just molecules. They're just peptides, just like cocaine and heroin are. These are peptides that you get addicted to. Anything that you do on a regular basis, your brain says, "Oh, I'm used to that. Let's do more and more of that." It's a habit loop that can eventually turn into an addiction. So if you're doing something that you try to stop and you can't stop, that is putting up a major blockage for you to actually allow your calling to come through to you. So I would challenge you, if you're having trouble finding that, whatever that is, to address those cravings, address those addictions, and you'll be amazed what happens whenever when you get rid of that addiction and you open up this space, right? You open up this space in Addiction and Grace, the book by Gerald May. He talks about whenever you give up this addiction, you open up this space for God or love or creativity, whatever you want to call it. It's that universal intelligence that just flows through you and is guiding you all the time. But whenever that addiction is in place, addictions take the place of that. Okay? So there brings up a big problem. So what do you do about addictions? And that's a whole other process. But the first thing is identifying the cue. What is the cue? This is from The Power of Habit. I can't remember the author's name. I like this model of understanding, at least till you can get in and break the habit. Okay, one of the things is, first you have to identify the cue. What is it that starts the habit? For me, I got into a habit of whenever Rebecca, here in the office, whenever Rebecca left to pick up the boys at school, we had this hour break, right? Where as soon as she left, that was my cue to go get something to eat, right? And often it would only have like 30 minutes before I would have to come back, and I didn't have time to go home and make my salad. And if I wasn't prepared, I would end up going and getting a sandwich, right? Or something something sugary like gluten, or a cookie, or a Subway sandwich or something like that. Something that kept that crave going. And then, of course, I would come back here and I would be dragging, and then I'd be, oh my gosh, and then I'd get a cup of coffee, and it just turned into this mess, this nightmare. So what's the cue there? The cue is Rebecca leaving, right? So, if you can just identify that as, okay, there's my cue, then you can make a plan for what's going to happen when she leaves. But if you don't, if you aren't at least aware of the cue that runs the routine, and then there's a reward. That's how it goes. Cue starts a routine, then there's a reward, right? Cue, Rebecca leaving, routine, me going to Subway, reward is that temporary rush of sugar and that addiction to gluten that literally is an addiction. You can become addicted to gluten. That's a big piece of the puzzle. So for a lot of you, just thinking about, okay, let's get rid of gluten and sugar and maybe even dairy for a whole month, see what happens, right? And that may open up that space for you, okay? So if you're not eating the bread, if you're not eating the ice cream, if you're not eating the cookies, guess what? That opens up space for creativity and you to possibly find that calling, okay? So, and I know this is a very complicated, much more complicated than that for deeper, more heavier addictions, but a lot of that is, finding that space and allowing grace, right? Allowing your Spirit to come through you and guide you in what you need to do. But you can't do that if that addiction is firmly in place and in front of you and blocking that from you. So that's my mindset piece for the day. The second piece, the movement piece. The movement piece is, I was injured over Thanksgiving, right? Injured going for actually an alley-oop. I was playing basketball with 4 out of the 5 starting seniors whenever I was in high school. 4 out of the 5 of us were playing on Thanksgiving. And I was going for an alley-oop, right? I was like, Scott, here, you were going on a fast break, and then boom, I get ready to jump and for the alley-oop, and boom, and I say sub, and I yanked my hamstring. I think it's really, really bad. I think I might have tore a little bit of hip cartilage. I don't know what's going on exactly yet, but here's what I've been doing since the day after Thanksgiving, right? I've been very guarded in how I've been walking. I've changed my movement pattern, because if I throw my leg out, I know I'm going to run into that pain. So my brain is consciously, or subconsciously I should say, keeping me from doing that. It's keeping me out of pain. It's protecting me so I don't injure that tissue. But you know what you see where I'm going with this? The problem is if I don't, after that tissue heals, if I don't recognize the pattern that I got into of this short stride. So for instance, whenever I come through, I've been kind of picking my leg up gingerly, putting it down, and then nice and carefully going to my next step, picking my leg up gingerly, putting it down with like a shortened stride. So what do? I'm picking up and I'm pulling my leg forward. Instead of the natural push, oh, see right there, it hurt. Still healing. I have to identify that. Once the tissue heals, I have to make sure I get back into that program of natural gait, or else I'm going to cause other problems down the line. Okay? So what's that mean for you? That means if you've ever had an injury, especially like a twisted ankle, or for instance, that's a twisted ankle. If you've twisted your ankle, you get kind of the same pattern. You get this little lurch like this. This little lurch like this. All of these patterns build up, and all of a sudden now you get one pattern on top of another pattern on top of another pattern. The bottom line is you have to go back to what is the most efficient program for your body, and what that is you go back to your neurodevelopmental patterns. If you can reboot your nervous system with neurodevelopmental patterns like the baby back position, remember that's from the course and from the free series where we go into the baby back position and just find our center again. We have to find our center, find our breathing, and then we go from there. We have to kind of reboot, it's like turning off the computer and turning it back on again, right? Then you have to relearn basic movement patterns, and that's what we go through, like I said, with the course and things. Do the basic movement patterns of crawling, right? The basic movement patterns of the oblique sit and getting up and getting from a sitting position to a standing position like a baby would. These are regrooving movement patterns, so then when you get back into walking or raising your arm, it could be just raising your arm, right? Raising your arm to get a glass out of a cabinet. If you're raising your arm because you hurt your shoulder or you hurt your neck and you got into a protective pattern, now every time you raise your arm, you're developing trigger points in your shoulder. You have to fix that by understanding that the first thing that has to happen is the center has to come on the brace, and then the shoulder blade has to anchor to your center, and then that throws the arm up into the air. So that's a movement program that has to be rewired. So that's my plea for you, is make sure that you are rewiring good movement patterns, good, efficient, and neurodevelopmentally correct movement patterns, so you don't end up continuing a damaging pattern and then causing, for instance, if you had a shoulder injury and you got in a protective pattern and now you got into this pattern and now you've developed neck pain or neck degenerative arthritis or neck disc problems because you never fixed the movement pattern in the shoulder. Okay, so those are a few cues, right? First thing is you find your center. Go to Baby Back, Baby Belly with the free series. Just put your name and email address in the form on the top of the blog page if you don't have that, and that'll help you get started reprogramming some of these patterns. And the other thing is, the real simple thing is to make sure your shoulder blade is always anchored down as you lift your arm. Those are a couple of simple things that I can share with you today. All right, that's the physical piece. Now the nutritional piece is, I kind of talked about the nutritional piece already with the gluten and the dairy and stuff, so I'm not going to go into that any further because, well, you get the picture, right? Gluten, I say gluten, wheat, dairy, sugar, these are the things to do a 30-day experiment with, or do a 30-day experiment without, and see if that opens up some space for you, some creativity for you, some energy for you to actually allow your purpose and calling to come through you. But you also have to be open to it, right? Maybe just saying something like, I'm willing and open for my purpose and calling to come through me at exactly the right time. Be open to it. If you don't put that energy out there, it's not going to, find its way to you as quickly. It will still find its way to you. It's always looking for you. Your calling is always looking for you. Mine is teaching. That's why I'm doing this right now. I'm going to be doing more and more and more and more of this coming in the new year. More on that to come. But this is what it's about. It's about opening up the space for letting your calling come through you. Like I said, it's always looking for you. And I'm going to post something about your calling. Alyssa Rankin, who I trust and admire, she's a speaker for Hay House. She's an author of Mind Over Medicine. I really like her a lot. She's an MD who is a traditional MD who was going down a bad spiral of getting not addicted to, but dependent upon all kinds of different drugs for blood pressure and because of stress and all this stuff. And her father was an MD, and he was in that model, entrenched in that model, but she started researching all of the information out there about the power of the mind over medicine. And that's why the book Mind Over Medicine. Now she is educating other doctors. Every year she has a group of doctors who come in and learn how to look at patients or clients as people and not cases or numbers, and using mind-body strategies to heal. Anyway, I'm going to put her information down below about 6 ways to find your calling, because she did a little program with Martha Beck called Find Your Calling, but she has a couple of nice blog posts about simple ways about how to do that. Okay, so I'll post that down below for you. This is kind of long today, but it's been a while, and I wanted to give you some solid content. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment or question down below here on the blog. If you're watching this on YouTube, head on over to the blog at gettoyourcore.com, and you can just look in the description box down below, and that's where you can leave your comment, and that's the best way to get interaction back from me. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for caring for yourself, and open up some space. Just let it come through you. Okay? All right, guys. Be good. Bye-bye.